Hi, I'm Marty Cohn, and this is BCTV's Meet the Candidates 2020, sponsored in part by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. This series affords you an opportunity to hear from folks running for elected office. Today, our guest is State Senator Becca Balint, a Democratic Party candidate for Windham County State Senator. Welcome, Senator Balint.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate that you're doing this series.
Oh, thank you. Well, let's get right into it. I'm really curious. Why are you seeking re-election as state senator?
Well, Marty, I've fought for social justice and equality issues my whole life, and I think government is a mechanism that can be used to make the world more just. So there's more work I want to do centered on equity, the kind of work that I've been doing for the last 6 years. So increasing minimum wage, building more housing, expanding childcare, which I know we're going to talk about more later. The reason I got into the race to begin with was fighting rural poverty in our county, really looking at rural economic development. And of course, with the national moment we're in now, continuing the racial justice work that we need to do even on the local level, and access to the ballot, which it keeps coming. I always say it comes back like a bad rash every few years. The push to disenfranchise voters. So I'm really committed to that, and working on our climate justice issues and environmental stewardship. So I've been pretty consistent on the issues for the last 6 years. And what I've learned, which I think we all learn when we first get into politics, is we think we're going to be able to get a lot done right away, and it takes time. And so we made some progress, but I am very much still committed. Specifically, I'm so glad you asked about childcare. That's something I've been working on for a long time. So we'll get more into that later.
Okay, so this year there are some other candidates running for state senator. What sets you apart from the other candidates running for state senator?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot. As a woman, as a child of an immigrant, as a member of the LGBTQ community, as a person who really didn't come for money and didn't have political connections, I do think I represent everyday people in our communities. And I really want our legislature to reflect just regular people. We are a citizen legislature. I think it's important that we remain a citizen legislature. And in addition to those particular qualities that I bring, there are also some skills that I think I bring that sets me apart. And I know a lot of people know I was a longtime teacher and educator, so I have solid facilitation skills that I bring to the chamber and the Senate. I've served for majority leader for the last 2 terms, and I bring those skills into use all the time in trying to get votes passed, bills over the finish line. I strive to hear all voices in the room, and I want to help people grow into their innate talents and develop new ones. That comes from my teaching and my coaching background. I want people to know too that I'm trained as a historian, and this gives me a really interesting perspective on the long arc of history, of history and social movements, and how change does take time. I'm able to make my own mistakes and admit them and learn from them. And I think that is a really important quality to have in a representative. And, I was thinking about it this morning over coffee, that I know who I am at my core, and that really guides my work. I don't need to get my sense of worth from this job, but I bring my understanding of myself to my job, and that enables me, I think, to do good work on behalf of my constituents.
All right, then. Well, so if you're reelected, what would be your top 2 priorities? 2.
Right. I knew you were going to say, what are your top 2? Because I was grouping them into 2 groups, but I can tell you're not going to let me get away with that. So one of the issues that I'm completely committed to is the issue of solving our childcare crisis. And along with that, so in terms of supporting families, another one is to continue the work that I've done on developing more housing across the state. We have a housing crisis that's really impacting families at almost every level, except for at the very top. And I think those two costs, the childcare and the housing burden costs, are what is really squeezing younger families in Vermont. So those are two of my top priorities.
All right. Well, let's get into a couple of those into that issue, because, what if you're reelected? What would you do to ensure that more Vermont families with young children can find and afford childcare?
Right. So, we have. I just want to make sure people understand, because I feel like I have to explain this to constituents a lot, which is that the demographic challenges in our state play out in many, many ways. And so we have a workforce crisis, and we say we want more people in the workforce, but we don't ever seem to connect the dots, that there are women and men who would like to get back in the workforce, but can't because they can't either find or afford childcare. So I see it as an economic development issue. And I think that has been a shift that we've been able to make in the minds of many Vermonters, is understanding, especially now at this crisis, this COVID crisis, when the cracks in the system around childcare were so clear, that we've got to have a more, not just a more robust system, but one that meets families' needs across the geographic and economic spectrum. So one thing that we did to deal with the pandemic was to provide $12 million in grants to the providers themselves, so they could take more steps to support early education centers. So the Child Care Financial Assistance Program pays, at a rate that fails to cover the true cost of the high quality childcare. So one is making sure that we are giving enough money to the centers that are providing childcare. And the other end of things is making sure that we are continuing to look at the issue of low wages. The pay for early childhood educators has never reflected the skill or the value to society. And so, and again, going back to the crisis that we're in right now, the low pay also doesn't reflect what we should be compensating workers for putting themselves at additional risk. So both things need to happen. We need to make these centers more financially viable, making sure they have the money they need for, keeping the lights on and making sure they can provide professional development. And we also need to look at the issue of wages, because one of the reasons why we have a shortage for spaces right now is that people are not going into this line of work.
Well, now I want to ask you about the other end of the age spectrum. Recent reports indicate that seniors in Vermont face one of the highest rates of financial insecurity in the nation. How do you think we can make life for seniors more affordable?
Yeah, so it's true. We have the dubious distinction of ranking first in the nation in the highest rate of economic security for older couples. And I think that we rank third in the nation for Vermont individuals who are elderly. And really, when you look at what is driving that, it's the higher costs of housing and healthcare. There are other issues at the federal level related to the fact that Social Security income payments really have not kept up with the cost of living increases that we've seen. We have reduced the tax that is levied on Social Security benefits within Vermont, and about 40,000 Vermont seniors were able to take advantage of that tax relief. But I'm really hoping, I sit on the Economic Development Committee in the morning and the Finance Committee in the afternoon, really hoping that over the next 2 years, we can finally do away with the tax on Social Security income, because we're one of only 4 states that still has that tax. So looking at, as I said earlier, housing costs, care costs continue to be a problem, but there's some great work that the legislature did in conjunction with the Treasurer's Office that I think will help around making sure Vermonters have more money in retirement. So we helped to set up Green Mountain Secure Retirement Board to make sure that private small employers could set up retirement accounts for employees. And so I just met with someone from the Treasurer's Office yesterday to get an update on this, and COVID slowed down the process. but it recently went out to a third-party vendor, so we should be getting that information back soon. But this has been a push that the treasurer Beth Pierce has had for years, which is nobody should be facing retirement without some kind of retirement plan. So I was proud of that work. She did a lot of that work through the Economic Development Committee in the morning. We also need, Marty, to continue to pay for the SASH services. And so for people who don't know what that is, that's the Support and Services at Home program. And about 5,000 elderly Vermonters receive help through community health providers and nonprofit organizations. So it's about comprehensive health and welfare checks, cost savings through preventative care, just regular check-ins to making sure people are okay, and long-time support, managing medications, making sure they know where they can get nutrition advice, that kind of thing. And so SASH is something that both Senator White and I strongly support. We want to make sure that that stays strongly funded going forward, especially as we continue to see our population aging. The one other thing that I wanted to say is there's this really interesting program that is happening in the Mount Mansfield villages of Jericho, Underhill, and Cambridge. I'm really curious to see if it's going to expand from there. So they have looked at community solutions for supporting the elders in their community. So providing assistance for transportation, for home repairs, cleaning and technology services, offered to them at a low cost. And so there are things that we need to do at the federal level. So we will continue to push our our congressional delegation for that help. There are pieces that we can do within the legislature, and then community focused solutions are also something that are going to help us address this problem. It is going, I believe, 2/3 of the Vermont population right now are over the age of 40, which is a startling figure when you think about workforce. And our fastest growing demographic is those over 80. And so we have got to make sure we're taking care of our seniors.
All right, so I'm optimistic that we're going to do, emerge from the coronavirus.
Yes.
So I'm interested, what's your vision for Vermont in a post-COVID world?
Yeah, right now it's really hard to imagine, isn't it? I just went to get a cup of coffee. Everybody's got their masks on and almost can't remember what it was like before. But I actually am someone who has a very optimistic view as well. I have a very strong vision of what we can be. So my vision is that every Vermonter, regardless of what town they live in or what county they live in, regardless of wealth or background, will have the opportunity to live a rich, full life in our state. And so what that means is that every corner of Vermont, we've got to put money investing in our downtowns and our village centers. We have to make sure we have enough affordable housing, and we continue to work on comprehensive healthcare, including mental health services. And when I look to the future, I think Vermonters, we won't be as panicked about climate change as we are right now, because we're going to make meaningful investments in climate action. Thinking about the agricultural sector, what I want, and I talk to farmers across our county, I want our farmers, young and old, to be able to make a livable wage, because we'll finally be able to pay them enough for their labor and for their stewardship of the land, which is so important to all of us. And looking, to the national level, I want everyone to feel welcome here, regardless of race and background, income, religion, gender identity. I want our communities to understand that we're truly richer when we have diversity. And I don't mean diversity in the sense of a simplified version of diversity of, we need to just bring more people of color here and there, we'll all be good. I'm talking about really embracing difference and understanding that is what makes communities robust, when you have a rich, differing sense of perspective and talents that people bring. And I want us to feel pride and joy that our state has been able to be welcome to all. The other thing that I'm thinking about is, as you say, in a post-COVID world, like I feel like Vermont is at a really interesting spot right now, because all eyes of the nation are on Vermont and how well, comparatively, we have dealt with the COVID-19 emergency. And I know from talking to my friends who are in real estate, you know, the real estate market's booming right now. And there might be some really good things that come from that if we get more people moving here permanently. I know that my next door neighbor just moved up from Boston with his spouse, and they're working remotely. And that's something we've talked about for a long time in Vermont, that we have a wonderful quality of life. And maybe we're going to be able to bring more people here because of not just the beauty, but that we take community seriously and we look after each other and we do wear our masks, and it's not a political issue, it's a safety issue. So I'm very optimistic.
Great. All right. So last question for today. What do you want voters to know about you?
You know, it's such an interesting question, and I could go in a lot of different directions, but I think what I want people to know about me is that politics, you know, it's a calling. Leading a political life is not easy. You get really nasty emails and Facebook posts, and people are often calling you because there's something wrong, right? They're worried they didn't get their unemployment check. They're worried because they can't get through to an office. And so I guess what I want people to know is, at my core, I love doing this work. I love my job. I love serving this county. It's been a tremendous pleasure and an honor to represent all of you in Montpelier. And when I first ran for Senate, my mom rifled through some papers and pulled out an old yellowing newspaper. And she said, this, you know, you got an interview in the paper when you were 17. And she said, I want you to see what you said. And what the reporter was, I wanted to teach for a while, which I did. I wanted to be a writer, which I still do. I think I want to go into some kind of political office. And I said, whatever I do, I want to make the world a better place for people. I want to make positive change. And I love that I knew that at 17, and I've still really followed that, that guidepost. I think that's what I would want people to know.
State Senator Becca Balint, a Democratic Party candidate for Windham County State Senator. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Marty. Appreciate it.
All
Bye.
right, you could look. Bye now. You can learn more by visiting the campaign's website, www.beccabalint.com. That's www.beccabalint.com. The general election is Tuesday, November 3rd. Remember, you can vote early in person, you could vote absentee by mail, or vote absentee hand-delivered on Election Day. Whichever way works for you, please vote. Thanks for watching Meet the Candidates 2020, sponsored in part by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. I'm Marty Cohn. Stay healthy.